Hey, Mr. Mysterious Uber drivers. Have you had any spooky encounters while driving? We'd love to hear your stories. Submit your written stories or clear audio recordings with no background noise to the email address mentioned in the description below. Your support is what keeps this channel going. So please like, subscribe, and comment where, when, and with whom you listen to these stories. It motivates me to create more eerie content for you. Now, stay safe on the road, keep your passengers entertained, and let the next story accompany you on your rides. I, like most of us, had a bad, emotionally dark relationship that took us to places we thought we would never see, both literally and in every other way. Back 20 plus years ago, I left mine at Skid Row in Los Angeles. I will only say that in the end, I wished to find the peace I could not bring her and told her as much. I could only save myself at that point. Years later, she would message me randomly on Facebook, and I ran into her at a supermarket. She was married and doing well at that time. I wished her well and moved on. One day, I started getting messages on Facebook again. Her husband had died, and she was once again out of control and ended up back in Skid Row. By then, I was married and established. I did not want to watch the train wreck unfold again and blocked her. I had been driving Uber for a few years at that point, on and off, and dreaded whenever I would go anywhere near Skid Row. I didn't want the drama of running into her. One night in October, I was trying to fill in a bonus and stayed out late. I ended up in downtown LA near Skid Row. I needed one more ride to meet my quota. My pickup was on 6th Street near San Julian. I noticed that most of the streetlights were off, but I could see a woman waiting at my pickup point. She was in black tights and a black hoodie. When she walked to the car, something was familiar about the way she moved. She opened the door, and I turned to greet her. The first thing I noticed was that my dome light did not turn on when she opened the door. In what little light there was, I could see her face in the hoodie. It was my ex, and my greeting died in my throat. She sat, closed the door, and looked out the window. At this point, I was starting to have doubts that it was her, because her face was young, like when I first met her, not tired like the last post I had seen of her. I mastered myself and quickly convinced myself it was a play of the light and my mind playing tricks on me. I decided to just go and drop her off, and I was being silly. It was a long drive, and she sat in silence, just looking out the window. I realized that I was driving towards Torrance, where her father's house had been. I checked the map, and sure enough, the drop was a block away at a small park near her dad's house. He had passed away a few years back, and the house had been sold. At that point, I just wanted the ride to end. I was freezing and emotionally holding on by a hair. But still, I convinced myself that this was a different girl, and I was being stupid. She just looked like a younger version of her. We got to the park, and I turned to look at her, but she was out the door, walking into the dark park. She disappeared into the shadows of the trees. I drove to the next gas station and fueled up to go home. My dome light came on, and I checked the back doors. The dome light was working. I checked the Uber app to see if I had imagined the whole thing. It was a real ride. Back at home, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. I decided to unblock her on Facebook and see if there were any recent messages. The first thing I saw was an in memoriam post with her name. It was the first time I saw that. Because she was known to lie a lot, that in itself didn't prove anything. It was the messages that got me. She had had a stroke and wanted to talk to me. Then another message a week later. Then all her posts and messages stopped a year before. I still did not believe due to her history of not telling the truth. A month later, I figured out how to confirm her death. The LA County coroner had a website that lists deaths. She was there, died a year before. I believe she was in the car with me that night, but I will never really know. Haunted by that night, I started researching more about the supernatural. I found stories similar to mine, ghosts of the past appearing to those they had unfinished business with. I couldn't help but feel that she was reaching out to me for closure. Maybe she wanted forgiveness, or perhaps she just wanted to say goodbye. I began to feel a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for the life she lost and the demons she couldn't escape, and relief that I had survived that dark period of my life. I decided to visit the park where I had dropped her off. It was a small, quiet place with a few benches and a lot of trees. As I walked through the park, I felt a chill in the air, a sense of presence that I couldn't quite explain. I sat on one of the benches, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. I whispered into the cold air, hoping she could hear me. "I'm sorry for everything. I hope you found peace." As I opened my eyes, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees, and for a moment, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Maybe it was my way of letting go, or maybe she had finally found her peace. Driving back home that night, I felt different. The encounter, whether real or imagined, had changed something inside me. I felt more at peace with my past, more grateful for the life I had built. I continued driving for Uber, but I never went near Skid Row again. The memories were too heavy, and the risk of encountering her ghost once more was something I wasn't ready to face. Life went on, but I always carried that night with me. It served as a reminder of how far I had come and the importance of cherishing the present while making peace with the past. Whether it was truly her ghost or just a figment of my imagination, it didn't matter. What mattered was the closure I felt and the lessons I learned from that haunting ride through Skid Row. I clearly remember that day. It was September 12th, 2022. The morning was crisp and clear, about 9:30 a.m. I was doing my usual Uber job, driving around the city, picking up passengers and dropping them off at their destinations. It was just another day until I got a call to pick up someone named Rick. I arrived at the dentist's office, and there he was, standing outside with his son. They got in the car, and Rick seemed a bit agitated. His son just sat there, rolling his eyes, clearly uninterested in the conversation. Rick proceeded to tell me all about his drama with the dentist. He was clearly distressed. Then he said, "I'm glad you speak English. I've had other Uber drivers that don't speak English. I normally don't take Uber, but my wife can't pick me up. She's always doing something with her friends and never taking care of her business. My daughter lives in New York, or else she would have picked me up." As we drove along, Rick kept rambling on about his life, his frustrations with his new wife, and how this wasn't his first marriage. He went on, and his son didn't say much. I'm assuming he was embarrassed by his father's behavior. The son just sat there, staring out of the window, occasionally glancing at me through the rearview mirror. We finally reached his house. It was a beautiful place, well maintained, with a manicured lawn and an impressive driveway. They both got out of the car, but before the son closed the door, he turned to his father and said, "You are such a jerk." The tone in his voice was sharp, almost bitter. I drove away, feeling a bit uneasy, and noticed a sunglass case in my back seat. I pulled over to check it out, and sure enough, there was a pair of sunglasses inside. I decided to go back and return them. When I arrived at Rick's house, he opened the door. I simply told him, "Hi, Rick. You or your son left your sunglasses in my car." He looked at me with confusion and said, "What son? What are you talking about?" I replied, "I'm sorry, you or the guy that was with you in the car." He answered back, "There was no one in the car with me. What are you talking about?" I got a little agitated and said, "Okay, sir, there was a guy with you in the car and the sunglasses belong to you or him. That's all I'm saying." He grew really mad and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what game you're playing, but these are my sunglasses, and there was no one in the car with me. I had a stepson. He OD'd 2 years ago. I might have said something on the way here, and you're playing a weird game." At this point, I was extremely frustrated. I thought he was playing some kind of stupid game with me. I've had many riders who would do anything to avoid paying a reward for something they left in the car. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Well, I guess I'm imagining what he said on the way out of my car. He said, 'You're a jerk.'" He looked at me as if he wanted to strike me, his face contorted with rage, but all he said was, "You're the jerk." He slammed the door in my face, and I walked away, feeling a chill down my spine. As I drove away, I still don't know if it was a ghost or not, but I kind of felt that somebody needed to say it to him, to make him confront whatever he was hiding or denying. Full disclosure, this is a true story. I also did not mention a lot of the conversation with him due to its politically inappropriate content. There were things he said that were deeply personal and controversial, things that I felt were better left unsaid. But that moment, that encounter, will stay with me forever. It was as if something beyond our understanding had happened, something that defied logic and reason. Whether it was a ghost or just the weight of his own guilt and past, I'll never know. But it was real, and it was unsettling. I work for Uber. 3 months ago, I got a request to pick up a man at a hospital. Hospitals often book rides for their patients so we can drive them home. Anyway, I arrived at the hospital and was waiting at the pickup point. I waited for about 5 minutes and decided to call the client to let them know I was there. The phone rang and a lady answered. I asked if the client was ready for pickup. The lady told me, "I'm sorry, the man you are picking up passed away 3 days ago. We forgot to cancel the ride." I told her that was fine and I'd cancel it, but before I could, I heard a voice say, "Take me home." A chill ran down my spine, but I decided to start the ride and continue as if he were in the car. It was a 15-minute drive, and I had this strange, compelling urge to go to that address. On the way, I spoke to him, asking questions as if he were there. I know it sounds crazy, but I heard mumbles in the back seat, though I couldn't understand them. As I drove past a Chick-fil-A, I swear I heard, "I like it there." A sense of joy inexplicably filled the car as we neared his mobile home. We finally got there, and I said, "You're home. Have a great day." I felt a cold breeze as if someone exited the car. As I drove away, the sensor on the car started going off, indicating the back door was open. I parked and checked, only to find the door slightly ajar. I knew it was closed, or the sensor would have alerted me the whole way to his house. This is a true story. It might not seem very scary, but I'll never forget it.